Oh my god, what is it called? The Host, by Sarah Shepard. Ugh, I got hair in there. Sorry. But I think she disappeared, she died, she disappeared, and then she gets involved with the shadow hunters. The doesn't say shadow hunters on here. The world of the shadow hunters. I was about to say it's called the Mortal Instruments series. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah, and today we are going to be taking a walk, a stroll, a jaunt, if you will, down memory lane to talk about the more popular, I guess, high profile books that I read in my high school years. And high school being from 2009 to 2013, so yeah, I'm a little bit of an old woman. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of look back on the books that I specifically read during that time period. I know there are books that have been published during that time period that I had gotten to like later on in the years, like during my college years and just recently. I'm not going to be talking about those. I want to talk about the ones that I specifically got into in my teenage, high school, late middle school years. A couple of these are late middle school, but we're counting them. So for these books, these are pretty well-known, popular books. So I'm not gonna do super in-depth synopses because I feel like most people aren't going to need them. But I will give like just a general explanation on kind of the general themes of the book, and then my thoughts on them. So the first book I'm going to mention, I think basically everybody on BookTube, BookTwitter, Bookstagram has read, and that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I feel like this was the start of the big dystopian trend in YA fantasy during the early 2010s. This book follows one of my all-time favorite protagonists, Katniss Everdeen. I don't think that she's ever gonna fall off the list of my favorite YA protagonists. There's just something about the way that she was written, how quietly strong she was, and how we really follow through her mental health issues that she had during this book and how she recovered and learned from them. So this is a very bloody dystopian novel, focusing on a battle royale event that happens every year. Okay, this is gonna be a little cringy, okay? But I actually picked this book up before it really hit like kind of the mainstream reading radar. I stumbled across it in my school's library, and a girl in my class saw me looking at it and told me that I should really definitely read it because she had read it just a little while before and absolutely loved it. So I picked it up and like instantly fell in love with Collins' writing style, with the world, and just the idea behind the story. I actually haven't read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I've heard very mixed opinions on that book, and I love the original trilogy so much that I kind of don't want to read it because I'm afraid that reading the prequel is going to kind of ruin the nostalgia and the just the overall love I have for this series if I end up not liking it. So I think maybe down the road I'll pick it up, but for now I think I'm gonna stick with just the original trilogy. So staying along the same lines of YA dystopia, the next book I have is the Divergent Trilogy by Veronica Roth. So this book is set in a society that is split into 5 factions. Each faction is centered around a core like personality trait or quality. Like there's honesty, there's selflessness, there's bravery. I think there's like a like a generosity and then a like intelligence. And so you are obviously you're going to be born into one of those 5 factions, and then at a certain age you have a choice to either stay with your faction or you can switch to a different faction based off of which of those traits you value the most, and then you have to test in to actually staying in that faction. And so here we follow our main character who was born in the faction that values selflessness, and she wants to go to the faction that values bravery, and so she decides to test into that. And from there, you know, the story goes into the typical not everything is as it seems for each faction and the design behind this kind of society. I liked this trilogy a lot. I will say it's not as memorable as some of the other books on this list. I don't think I ever finished watching the movies. I did finish the trilogy, and I know a lot of people were upset with how this one ended. I like the direction that Roth took with the main character. I don't necessarily like how a couple of the events played out directly after the big climactic event. It didn't make sense for a couple of characters' decisions. But besides that, I actually liked how she really took this huge risk in how the main character, how her story ended. It was really unexpected, and I felt like something that hasn't been really done. I can see where people were upset with it, and I can see where it could be considered, I don't want to say a cop-out, because I don't think it was a cop-out. I actually think it was a really brave decision, but I can see where people really didn't like it. I did like how it ended. I liked her decision on it. I was never really a big fan of like the romance in this book. I guess I didn't really care for like the leading male character as much as like in the Hunger Games. I did really like Peeta a lot. Didn't really like Four in this one. He was okay. But I just didn't think that the chemistry was quite there. So the third book that I have is another trilogy, and that is The Maze Runner by James Dashner. I feel like this one isn't talked about as much as some of the others on this list, but it had a big enough impact that there were at least 2 movies made out of it. I don't think they ever got around to the 3rd movie, but I know The Maze Runner and then the 2nd book, The Scorch Trials, did have a film made out of it. So this is another kind of like futuristic doom and gloom dystopia-esque novel, but it's a bit different, where we follow our main character who wakes up in this like big elevator shaft thing, and when he gets to the top, he ends up in this compound filled with like, I don't know, 100 teenage boys or something like that. They're in this big compound that is surrounded on all sides by these giant walls, and in each wall is a big door. So there's 4 doors leading out to a giant maze that surrounds the compound. Each night the 4 doors close, and that is because there are creatures that come out during the night that you can hear skittering around and making all sorts of gross mechanical noises. So you don't want to be caught on the maze at night. But then there are runners who go out into the maze trying to solve the maze and find the way out of the compound. And so when Thomas, our main character, comes up into this elevator shaft into the compound, he finds out that every month a new boy shows up. And so nothing's new there. He's just a new kid that has shown up in the compound. But then the next day, a girl is delivered, and she's the first girl that's been delivered, and the fact that she comes the next day just sets off a whole series of events, and that's kind of all you need to know going into this book. I loved this first one, loved the second one. The third one is good. I was kind of disappointed with how it ended. Like, it made sense, but it felt kind of like a flimsy ending. I absolutely loved the first two books, though. I loved the creepy dread that came with going into the maze, and all of just the mechanical creepy monsters. I loved the zombie-esque trope that we get from the second book. That was really fun. The movie for the first one, I was disappointed with the movie for the first one because there were things that happened in there that I was like, that doesn't make any sense. That didn't happen in the book, and that's gonna really change a lot of things. And then I know the second one, I don't think I ever saw the second one, to be honest. I think I just kind of gave up on the movies after that. But the books are really good, and I do highly recommend it. As you can see, we're a bit beaten up here. We've taken some beatings, been read and shared with a couple of friends quite a bit, but it's definitely worth the read. I will say one thing to keep in mind going into this. So Dashner created a kind of slang language that all the boys in the compound use, and that did really throw me off and take some getting used to. I am very, very hit or miss when it comes to made-up slang words and made-up languages. A lot of times it comes off as cringy to me. It started that way in this book, but once I got used to it, I just kind of, it didn't bother me anymore. And I think this was kind of like the first book that I ran into that. So I think that's why it didn't sit well with me at first, but once I got used to it, I do think Dashner pulled it off well enough. It made sense, especially given like the age group of the boys. It's like I think they're like 10 to 16 or something like that. And so it did fit really well with the characters and the setting that he was creating. So yeah, I definitely feel like more people should read this book because I rarely ever see it talked about anymore. Alright, this next one, I'm gonna make some people really mad here, and I feel bad for this because I know this is a lot of people's favorites, but I really did not like this book. I didn't like it, and that is The City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. It's the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. I actually took a long time to ever get around to this book. I had seen it all the time, heard a lot of people loving and reading it, and I didn't pick it up until right before the movie came out. As you can see, I got the little movie sticker. And I had a lot of friends that were super excited for it and were wanting to go see the movie. And so I'm usually one that likes to read the book before the movie if there is a book that the movie is based off of. And so I was like, okay, let me pick up the first one and let me read it. And I don't like it. I hated this book. I thought nothing happened. Like, nothing. I was reading it and I was like, what's happening? Like, nothing's going on in this book. And like, I get, there was stuff going on. I didn't care. I didn't care about the characters. I wanted to care about the world. It's set in like today's world, New York City, about Clary, and she goes to this club and then she sees a murder happen. So she finds these shadow hunters who are like demon hunters, and then she realizes that she can see like the demons and stuff, and then so she gets wrapped up in there because they thought that she was just like an ordinary human, and now she's seeing all these things, and she knows their secrets and stuff, and so they're trying to figure out how does she suddenly have these abilities to see what's going on, and who is she, you know? And I really wanted to like this book, but I thought the writing was bland. I thought the characters were bland. I did not like the weird thing with the love interest. Like, there's a weird this is potentially my brother. And then I know, like, later on, like, they find out they're not siblings, but it's still really strange to me. I just thought that was, like, an unnecessary addition to the story. And I'm gonna be honest, I thought the same thing about the movies too. I thought the first movie, I think they only actually made the one movie. I thought the movie was not that great either. I just went to support my friends. So this is like the first book in one series, and then there's like other series in the same world that all tied together, and I've heard that the other ones are really good and are better than this one. I really, like, I had no intention of ever continuing this series, and so this is really the only one I've ever read. I don't think I'm ever going to continue this series. I know, I think it's Chain of Iron, Chain of Gold, Chain of something, Chain of some metal, came out like last year, and then Chain of the other metal. I feel really bad. I feel really bad because I understand these are like some people's like favorite books, but I know that those two just came out, like one is coming out this year. So the series is still going. Yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna pick it up. I'm sorry. Okay, so this next book is another one that, like, it's another one that I'm not a fan of, but it's one that I have more mixed feelings, because initially I was a huge fan of it. And this is more one that I started the series in late middle school. So that's why earlier I mentioned, like, we're gonna conclude a little bit of stuff in late middle school. That's because of this book, and that is the Twilight series. I'm holding Breaking Dawn because this is the only one that I actually own. I borrowed the first three from either friends or the library, but I do own Breaking Dawn. This is your infamous human falls in love with a vampire story, and I'm gonna be honest, I loved these books when I was in middle school and early high school. Loved them, which is why I have Breaking Dawn. I did read all four. I did not read Midnight Sun, which came out last year. I did not read it, but it was fun to see how excited everybody was on social media. Because it is a very nostalgic throwback, and I do have some nostalgic feelings about this series, even though, like, today I actually really don't like this series. So when I first read it, I loved the series. You know, I thought that the Cullens were like the coolest thing. I was one of those like cringy teenagers that had like your Team Edward, Team Jacob t-shirts and a little tote bag, and I think I had like a vegetarian vampire shirt. So yeah, I was one of those cringy teenagers. However, after the first movie came out, I realized a couple of things. I realized how bland Bella's character is, and how cardboard and like robotic she is. And then I also realized, I went back and tried reading these books again, I don't know, a couple years afterwards, and I don't like her writing style at all. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I think it's pretty bad writing. I will say, Stephenie Meyer's other book, The Host, you can't even tell they're written by the same author. That book I thought was phenomenal, and I absolutely loved it. And that one I read a couple of years after my attempt to reread this series, when I realized that I really didn't like the writing style. And the only reason why I picked up The Host was because I had a friend who had read it and said that the same exact thing. You can't even tell they're by the same author because the writing style is so different and so much better in The Host. I also think that the series is kind of problematic because of, especially New Moon. Oh my god. I'm gonna be honest, from like, even when I was first reading New Moon, like the first time, I was like, can we move on? Like, can we stop with the brooding? And like I hated that book. I was like, we need to move on. Edward, just come back. Bella just get over it. Like, Like, please stop. I can't handle this. This is too much. And I thought it was, like, looking back on it, it is, like, kind of toxic and very unhealthy. This is a YA series, and so it isn't a very healthy depiction of a relationship or how to handle a breakup. And I get it's like a supernatural thing or whatever, but like I still don't think it was written in a way that is good for younger girls to read. I'm still a bit nostalgic about it, I will be honest. Okay, gonna be honest, if Stephanie Meyer were to ever write a spin-off of this series about Alice Cullen, I'd read it. I'd read it. I would have to, because I loved Alice. I thought Alice was the best. Yeah, okay. I would pick that one up. I didn't pick up Midnight Sun, but if we get an Alice story, I'll pick her up. So yeah, that is my very complicated relationship with the Twilight series. Okay, so the next three are like kind of, we're gonna veer off quite a bit away from the fantasy and the dystopia. So these next ones, they're either contemporary or historical fiction or like a thriller-esque contemporary. So the next book is the Pretty Little Liars series by Sarah Shepard. So just a little caveat here, I didn't finish the whole series. So this was supposed to originally be an 8-book series. I read the first 8 books, loved it, and then she kept coming out with more, and I think I read 2 more after the 8th one, so like to book 10, realized it was like the same story being rehashed in like a different packaging or whatever with the same characters, and I was like, okay, I'm done. So I don't know how many books she actually came out with this series, but I only read the first 10. And honestly, we're not even going to count the 9th and the 10th one, because the first 8 was really just that's all you need, the first 8 for the story. And so this is kind of a gossipy domestic thriller. So you've got these 4 girls that go to this rich prep school, and they are all best friends, and they had a 5th best friend who disappeared, and basically they think that she's dead, and it's like a little while later past her disappearance, and all these girls have like these different secrets and stuff that they're hiding, different like crushes or scandals or things like that, and suddenly they start getting letters and messages from someone that say that they know their secrets and that they are going to potentially expose them or whatever. And they're all signed by someone named A, and their best friend that vanished was named Allison, and so they're like, well, it's gotta be her, you know. And so you follow through the 8 books, you follow the 4 girls as they try to figure out who A is, what happened to Allison, and how to keep their secrets from being exposed. They did make this into a TV show, I think on like ABC Family or something. I never watched the show. I did hear that it was very different than the books, but I liked the books a lot. I actually thought they were really fun. These were kind of like my first real thrillers, like thriller mystery books that I got into, and I thought they were fun. I also kind of liked the whole gossipy popular prep school drama, because me being the shy nerdy kid that wasn't popular or anything and didn't get involved with any drama, and just kind of like there would be rumors or something big would happen at my school, and I would suddenly find out like 2 weeks later, and I'm like, oh, no way, and they're like, yeah, that's like old news. So the fact that like I didn't have anything to do with that in my real life, it was kind of like really entertaining to read about it. Happened to these 4 imaginary characters. So yeah, I don't see this one talked about actually too much on social media at all, but you know, it's another one that there was a TV show made out of it, so you know, enough people have read it that they wanted to make it into visual media. So I figured I'd mention this one too. Alright, so these next two books are sad books, but they are very, very popular, and I have seen these mentioned like in social media particularly. I have seen this next one mentioned in different a couple different YouTube videos, and that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. So this follows a young girl. Her story is narrated by Death. It's Death as a character. Death is your narrator, and he kind of follows this girl as she lives in 1939 Nazi Germany. So this little girl gets taken in by this family who is hiding a Jewish man in his basement, and it's kind of the story of how Death is following her and how she wants to learn how to read, how she's kind of comprehending what's going on around her in Nazi Germany. This book is a lot of things. It is super, super sad. I think when I picked this one up, I just kind of stumbled across it on a shelf in Borders back when Borders was still in existence. R.I.P. Borders, I'll love you forever. Yeah, I found it, and it was during a time where I think we were doing like a couple of Holocaust units in either my English class or my history class or both. And I just kind of wanted to be sad, I guess. And so I picked it up. This book opened my eyes to a whole new level of appreciation for how beautiful words and just prose in general can be. This book is written in just like this achingly sad, beautiful way. This book was like kind of a turning point in my appreciation for literature. Like, I'd always appreciated reading and books and writing, but there's just something about Zuzak's writing that just kind of really opened my eyes and resonated with me. So if you ever want to be sad, this is a book. Okay, so this next book in particular, the one I'm gonna hold up, is a sad book, but I'm kind of going to be talking about more the author, but I'm holding up this first book because this is the first book I read by him, and that is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. So yeah, this is the first book I had ever read by John Green. I think a friend recommended it to me. I read this, bawled my eyes out. I fell in love with his writing too. This is another one where his writing's a little more, I guess, controversial, but not in the way that you would think. Not in like necessarily a bad way. A lot of people either absolutely love his writing, which I side on that team, or they think that he's overly pretentious. I can see where that's coming from, where people that think that are coming from, but like, let's think about it. High schoolers and like teenagers in general, if they're like the broody, artsy kind or whatever, they think they're like pretentious anyway. They act pretentious and they think they're smarter than what they actually are. Okay, so it makes sense with the characters that he writes, how he writes his stories in general and how he writes his characters, I think. But I understand where people are coming from, where they might find it annoying. I started The Secret History. I thought that was overly pretentious and annoying, and I couldn't finish it, and I had to put it down. I have yet to pick it back up. I will pick it back up eventually, but we're not talking about that book. We're talking about John Green here. So this book was the first one that I read by him, and then I proceeded to just pick up the rest of his books, except I don't think I ever got around to Will Grayson, which I've heard good things about. I for whatever reason, I never picked that one up. But I do really like Looking for Alaska. I liked Paper Towns a lot. Abundance of Catherine's was not a fan. Didn't really like that one. And then Let It Snow, he co-authored it with 2 other authors. That one was okay. It was just kind of like a collection of 3 different short stories. He wrote one of them. The other 2 authors wrote the other 2. It was cute, but I think this one for sure will always resonate with me. Because it was the first one I read that he wrote, and I do think it is his best. I did read Turtles All the Way Down, which is his most recent one. I did read that one not last year, but the end of 2019. It was good. It's a really great representation of mental health. I know that one has a lot of mixed reviews because of how there's like a lack of a plot. That's a long story. That's a whole nother video. My opinions on that. I actually think that's kind of the point of the story. But like I said, whole nother discussion that I could make a whole video over. But anyway, The Fault in Our Stars is about 2 teenagers that have cancer. One is in remission, and then Hazel is not. She's been struggling for years with a cancer that is terminal. And they meet in a group, I think it's a group therapy session that they meet. And it's just it's their love story, and it's so beautiful, but it's so devastating. I loved the movie too. Like, I think the movie was really well done. I think the book is always gonna be better. I don't know if there's a movie that I ran into where I think the movie is better than the book, but the movie of The Fault in Our Stars was phenomenal. I cried for like the entire last 45 minutes of this movie, okay? All of us in the theater had a moment where it got quiet and we all like had a collective sniffle, and then we paused and laughed when we realized, everybody laughed when they realized what happened, and then immediately something like sad again happened, and we're like, shh, go back to crying. So yeah, it was a moment. So, let's see if I can do this. These are the books that I read during my high school years that were popular at the time. Like I said before, there's other books that were published during that time that I had gotten around to that maybe I just don't own anymore and I don't remember them. So I'm kind of playing catch up with books that came out kind of the later half of my high school years through my college years, because during that time I really did not read nearly as much as I wanted to, just due to scheduling and school, and me not giving myself enough time to do that, as well as certain mental health issues that I had at the time that prevented me from enjoying something that I truly love. So I would love to hear if you've read any of these books, any opinions that you have on them, if there were any books that you read during your high school years, whether they be from 2009 to 2013 or a different, a different set of years that you find super nostalgic. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I would also love if you considered sticking around. I'm always looking to talk with people about books. I can talk for hours about books, and I love to hear what you love to read. So feel free to subscribe and stick around. I look forward to blabbing your guys' ear off in the next video. So thanks for watching. Bye!